All right, you ready?
Oh, yep.
You ready?
Ready.
Here we go.
Welcome to Like Mother, Not Like Daughter podcast, where we will have conversations of womanhood that will bridge the gap from one generation to the next.
That's right. Our hope is that this podcast sparks honest conversation between families and within families that will strengthen the family bond.
Let's be honest about it. There's a way around it. I like the way you do it, baby. Let's be honest about it. There's a way around it. I like the way you.
I am one of your hosts, Jen Rodriguez.
And I am Carolyn Little.
Yes, and today is our very, very first podcast
Yay!
episode. So that means that we need to get to know each other a little bit better so that you
Yes.
can know me and my mom.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, Carolyn is my mom.
Yep.
Carolyn Littell. She's my mother, and I have a 7-year-old daughter, Mercy. I am also a digital content creator, and I am a correspondent for Ebony Magazine. I am also an entrepreneur with an upcoming boutique
Yay!
launching soon, so I don't know when this will come out, but it's coming soon. So until it does, I won't say the name because I don't want to, I won't spoil that for nobody.
Don't want to do it.
But I am coming out with a boutique really soon. So I have a really entrepreneurial spirit. And I guess by definition, generation-wise, I would be considered a millennial, which for me creates a little bit of conflict in terms of what my values are and just kind of leaning on things I've learned versus exploring my own way of doing things.
Yeah.
So, that's a little bit more about me.
Yep. And I'm an entrepreneur as well. I'm the owner of Lifestyle Soulutions, where we give clear solutions for your life because we care. And I also have partnered with Leslie and Les Perot of Symbis, and that is Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, as well as Symbis Plus, just coaching married couples. And with Lifestyle Solutions, I do coach married couples, individuals, and families. And for me, I will be known as a baby boomer.
Boom, boom, baby. Don't think
Yes.
boom, boom.
Yes.
All right. So here's the thing. Here's a little bit of a reason why we're doing this podcast. And I know some people might say, why are you doing a podcast with your mama, of all people? There's a lot of things that I am unlearning. There's this whole thing about unlearning right now. Just kind of looking at the way I was raised, some of the things that I was taught, and learning which things to embrace and grasp and hold on to and adopt. And which things to say, okay, let me eat the meat, spit out the bones, and, adopt my own traditions and my own way of doing things for myself and for my daughter. So in that, transition of unlearning, what I'm loving about our relationship is that we have a very open, honest relationship where she's willing to learn from me, even though I'm her daughter, as well as me learning from her. So we figured we would share some of the things that we're uncovering together and, spark again that conversation within your family, and hopefully it'll work.
Yeah. And another reason why we're also doing the podcast is that it also puts other mothers that are in my generation in learning process. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to learn from other generations, even though my mom and her generation had great values and things when I was growing up. The next generation might be the generation that we can learn from as far as the next. Yeah. Keeping things open, keeping things fresh, keeping things on the cutting edge. So even though our generations collide, we're both open to a learning curve and a learning process.
And I think there's things that we have in common too that maybe we just haven't talked about or uncovered because we sometimes are focused on colliding and sometimes focused on because we're unlearning. Yeah. It's like we have to cast away all things and just not learn anything from our parents still. And I think for us too, one thing for me that I want everyone to get out of this, and maybe one thing that you'll see as you continue to listen and watch, is that it's okay to agree to disagree on some things. Yes. You might not always 100% agree. So let's get into it. Like Mother, Not Like Daughter is available on all streaming platforms, available for podcasts. So Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever's out there, that's where we're going to be. So if you're listening, make sure you subscribe to us and make sure you stay tuned for a lot more episodes to come. And if you're on YouTube, we are filming for YouTube. So you might hear some clink, clink, clink on the podcast because we have our smoothies ready to go, our fruit smoothies because we like to clink, clink, clink. Okay. So you might hear a little clink, clink in the background on the podcast, but that's okay. YouTubers, welcome. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you hit that notifications bell so that you don't miss the next episodes.
Yes.
Blah, 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 blah. So this first episode is called Moms, right? Lessons of Motherhood.
Yes.
So there's a lot of lessons that I learned as a mom. And we're going to explore what some of those are. And there are lessons that she learned as a mother that she handed down to me. But there are some things that, she passed on to me that I'm kind of saying, I don't know if that's for me and my child. And I'm sure Mercy will feel the same way when she has her child. So we are going to explore how we were raised in our generation, how that affects raising and connecting with our daughters as we, build that relationship.
Yeah, now this is really different for me because I'm learning from a lot of generations.
Yeah, that's true. 6
children and 7 grandchildren. So everybody is into their own, basically, generation. But for me, as being a baby boomer, in my generation, we learned about family values. We had family values. We learned about savings, 401ks. We learned about working hard. We learned about showing up on time. We learned about coming home with our families, eating dinner, volunteering at church. All those were so great values from us. We learned even, we just learned so many different things, and we had so many different values as a baby boomer, making sure you had health insurance and life insurance. So as we go from generation to generation, there's not a right or wrong about the different things that you value. It's learning that all things are important when it's time to value those things. Like with you might have a different value than I had when I was growing up. Doesn't make it right or wrong. It's still a value. And I think that's the thing from generation to generation. We definitely have to understand that values could be different, but it's still a great value.
For me personally, I do value my time more than a lot of things. Not more than money necessarily, because money pays for what I can make time for.
Correct.
But I definitely value my time. I do want security, like a lot of the things that you're talking about in terms of 401k and saving and all of that stuff. Like I do want security for me and my daughter.
Yeah.
But I also have like a real entrepreneurial spirit, and I don't want to give all of my gifts and talents away to other people and never really build on any of the ideas and goals and passions that I have.
That's true.
I think that there's prioritization in there.
Yeah.
Like there's obviously, for me, I did quit my job. I don't know if you know, I quit my job. I left my job March 4th. I marched 4th out of that thing. But I had to plan. I had to kind of think beforehand. Honestly, a lot of it was faith, but I also had to believe God to meet the need. But for me, I really did have to plan and provide that security for my daughter, because she honestly comes first. Like I don't want to say I've lived my life. I have a lot of life to live, but she didn't choose to be here. So it's my responsibility to provide that security for her as a mother and as a parent.
Yeah.
But as a woman, there are ideals and things that I have to make time for in order for me to be fulfilled, and honestly, in order for God to do what He needs to do in my life.
Yeah. And that's really good to recognize that your time is valued, but that you do also have other securities.
Absolutely. Did you hear about the, speaking of what, sorry, this is kind of off cut. Did you hear about the is it quiet quitting? You ever heard of quiet quitting before?
No.
It's like it's something that this generation has kind of started doing. It's almost like you are committing to yourself to not give, from what I understand. Again, I'm borderline, so I don't know if it's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and again, I'm learning.
But from what I understand it to be, quiet quitting is kind of like knowing that this job isn't your passion. It's almost like treating your job like your side job. You're not necessarily looking to climb the corporate ladder so much that you're doing things that you should be getting paid for, but you're not. You're spending extra time and extra hours at work instead of spending them with your family. Like it's a way of kind of like saying, okay, this is my job description. This is my pay. I'm staying within that. And if you require me to do more without giving me more, or without even caring if I have the passion to do more, then I'll go somewhere else. It's like a quiet way of prioritizing your job and treating your job like a side job. How do you feel about that as someone who values security? And I know in your generation, you were probably taught like you want to climb the corporate ladder, you want to do this. But nowadays, it's like I want to go to work and I want to go home. And I want my home and the things that I enjoy to be my job and what I prioritize.
Yeah, that goes back to the time. And it goes back to you valuing your time. I mean, I guess it's your preference.
Yeah.
If you decide that you want to, climb that corporate ladder, there's no way that you are not going to finish certain projects or just walk off from your job because you might be working 42 hours in 1 week, 45 hours. That's just not going to happen when you're trying to climb that corporate ladder.
Yeah.
I think that, I think things will be, there's a balance, but I do think there's a time for everything, even in your generation. I mean, think about how long it took us to get things set up today. We didn't quietly quit.
You wouldn't.
And say, I'm just saying, we didn't quietly quit. We hung in there because we wanted to see this project go forth today.
That's true.
So I think it's the same thing with this quietly quitting thing. It just depends on what your preference is, and it depends on what type of security you really want for your family and for yourself.
Yeah.
So quietly quitting, I think sometimes it's for me, nobody actually reads their contracts when they hire them because there's that little fine line that's down there that says, and anything else that your supervisor asks you to do, you would try to get it done as best as you can. So let's just top it that we're going to just close that topic down right quick because this has been one of these topics where we probably agree to disagree. So we're going to jump right into some hot motherhood topics.
Before you plow over, I just want to make sure I make it clear. I'm not 100% sure if that's the definition of quiet quitting. It could be if your boss is, disrespecting you, or you just aren't in a positive environment, you're in a negative environment.
I can
you're
see
kind of
that.
leaving without really saying anything, or looking for other jobs while still working the job, which I get. However, what I will say, just to your point, there is balance.
Yeah.
And I think that there's also a level of maturity that has to be there.
Yeah.
I think that if you put yourself in your boss's shoes, or you consider yourself, hey, if I was an owner of a company, would I want to at least know if there's something I can improve on? And I'll say this because there's a lot of people working 9-to-5s right now.
Yeah.
And you treat it like a side job, which is fine. But you have to remember, when you sign up to do something, your word is your bond. I feel like people don't keep their word as much anymore.
Yeah.
Keep your word. Your word holds weight. It holds value. Just like you want to hold someone else to their word, keep your word. So if you are working a job, whether it's 9-to-5 or 8-to-4, whatever it is, during that time, really do try to give 100% out of good character, out of good integrity. And if you need to find something else, that's fine. But I always give my management or my employees or whoever, if there's something negative happening, I give it a chance and I voice my opinion and I let them know, like, hey, as a sign of maturity and as a sign of communication, because I used to struggle with that. Even if it's my boss, I let them know, like, hey, this is affecting me. This is affecting my job performance. Blase, blase, blase. This is what's going on. And, how can we rectify this and move forward together? Because I know we both want me to do well at this job. So I think that it just comes down to maturity. And I hope quiet quitting kind of quiets down. Well, I get it, but, I think it's just about maturity.
Remember, and then quiet quitting, what you want to make sure that I suggest strongly that you do is give that 2 weeks notice.
I was just going to say that.
And don't walk out quietly.
Listen.
Quitting, because you never know when we might have to go loudly back again.
Ooh.
Okay?
Ooh.
So let's just jump into some hot motherhood topics and see where we can bridge the gap, because it's important that we walk away understanding more about each other regarding these topics, but also gives us a confident outlook on building your own ideas. So Jennifer, how did you feel when you first became a mother?
Ooh, okay. So I'll tell you about when I found out I was going to be a mother, because that was interesting. That was interesting. So when I found out I was going to be a mom, it really took us by surprise.
Yeah.
Like, that was not the plan at all, because me and my ex-husband, we were only married for a few months. So that was the biggest thing. It was a really big surprise. But I remember immediately thinking, number one, I was like, man, my mom's not here.
Yeah.
Like, my family's not here. I don't have any family around. I'm here, not really by myself because obviously I had my husband, or husband at the time, whatever. But I felt like I was kind of by myself. So I was a little nervous, but I'll tell you the first thing I did was picked up the phone after calling my mom.
Yep.
You already know what I'm going to say. I was like, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I've ever done. Especially when we found out we were having a girl. Like, that's when I immediately picked up the phone and was like, I am so sorry. My bad for all the, like, drama or whatever that I've caused you as a teenager. Like, I am so sorry because I already know if she's anything like me.
But she is.
I am going to definitely. So I think for me, I was nervous.
Yeah.
I was excited. I was looking forward to it. I felt ready because I always knew I was going to have a girl ever since I was in high school. Remember that poem I wrote in high school from my daughter I didn't know I had when I was 15? Her name was going to be Angel Joy.
Oh.
And I loved her from that moment. I just knew I was going to have a girl. But I think the number one thing I was worried about was giving birth.
Yeah.
The pain.
Hello.
And the other thing I was really worried about was just being a good mom. Yeah. And I think I was scared to be judged, especially by other really good mothers. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. I didn't want to disappoint you or grandma or anybody. So for me, as many books as I read and as many articles that I looked up, I joined mom groups. And the number one thing that I saw was a lot of judgment. Yeah. I saw a lot of people giving advice and maybe sharing what they do and stuff like that. And there's people upset and saying, what are you doing? And it's like, that is their child. Leave them be. Let them do their thing. Yeah. So I think for me, that's when I really decided, especially when I was pregnant. Yeah. I really decided that I need to do what's best for me. I'm going to take the meat, kind of spit out the bones. Even though my daughter wasn't born yet, she's giving me signals of what she needs within my body. You know, she's growing and developing. So I have a responsibility to her, but I also have a responsibility to listen to her. Yes. And I think for me, that's kind of how it felt, just, you know, finding out that I was going to be a mom. I was like, it's going to be such a good journey. It's going to be exciting. But I was really afraid of judgment from other really good moms that I admired. So I will admit that. What about you?
Well, I do have to say, Jennifer, you're a great mom. Oh, you are such a great mom.
Thanks, Mom.
And so, you are a great, great mom. So I'm sure Mercy appreciates that. With me, you know, I was a mom at 16 years old in high school. So, of course, when I found out that I was pregnant, I was scared. You know, I was scared. I mean, just a lot of things. Do I have to quit school? How am I going to graduate? Am I going to graduate on time? But I thank God for Grandma, my mom, who actually made sure that I did graduate on time because there was a point where I couldn't go to school because we had steps. And so she would go and get my homework, and then she would take it back to the school and turn it in for me. So I just thank God for her just being there, you know, for me during that time. But I was scared. And those things were like, man, what am I going to do? You know, now that I have a kid, my life is getting ready to change, the college plans that I had and things like that. But I do thank God for just community. And I thank God for my mom and those that, you know, stood by me. And I had to get a babysitter and, you know, to go back to school in my senior year. And so it was just one of those things where my mother was like, you know, I've had my children. I'm not going to be your built-in babysitter, so I'll help you find a babysitter. So I had to
sound like grandma.
Yes. So I had to, you know, pay a babysitter out of my little welfare money and all of that. So it was just one of those things where I was scared, but I thank God that I persevered and went to college and everything. But one thing I did want to make sure that my child would be proud of his mom. Mm-hmm. That was something that I just, from birth, it was like my son is going to be proud of who I am. And so it just really, you know, gave me that just, how can I say it? Just wanted to just do good and finish well, you know. So he was my motivation to do that. So, being a mom at 16 was a little challenge.
I bet. So you mentioned like wanting to be a good mom and make your son proud, which I'm sure he is, you know, my brother. I'm sure he's really, really proud of you, and that's why he still calls you.
Yes, he does.
And asks for advice and all that good stuff. But have you ever felt like judged or do you ever feel judged for some of the choices that you made with us? Because you have 3 biological children, and then you have 4 biological children. Good Lord, who was up? Just that quick. 4 biological children and 2 that you were kind of married into.
Yeah.
So do you ever feel judged for any of those, like any decisions you made as a mom or even as a bonus mom?
No, I don't. Well, the only time I felt judged, and I'm sure your dad and I felt at the same time, was that when we actually moved from Gary to Michigan, because we actually wanted our children to grow up in a different environment. And so when we decided that we were going to move, no one could understand. We had no family in Michigan when we moved here to Michigan. We had no, we had a church. Your dad had a community of brothers and sisters that he had come in contact with while he was here in Michigan, during a time while he was at Teen Challenge program. But other than that, we knew no one here in Michigan. So I felt like, you guys going up there, you don't know anybody. You'll be back. You're not going to be able to raise your children up there by yourself. You're going to need this community. You're going to need us. And, your dad was one of those like, no, we're not. We're going to be fine.
Oh, wow.
And so it wasn't 3 or 4 months we were there. Granny couldn't stop coming up there. My mom couldn't stop coming up there. Once they made that first visit and seeing how beautiful it was and how we were living, everybody wanted to come to Michigan. So, but it was just one of those things. Yeah, I think we felt judged by that because that was a big move for us. But,
you know what? I feel like a lot of people probably relate to that, especially after the pandemic. I heard of a lot of people making moves, to have jobs, and you feel a little guilty moving away from your community and from the people that you know, and you might have faced some judgment there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your family was kind of causing you to feel a little bit judged there. How did that make you feel, hearing those words? I mean, I'm sure you guys powered through, but honestly, how did that make you feel to hear that from your family?
It did. We did power through. I didn't feel like, at first I was like, well, dang, can we get some support? But then after that, it was like, when you know that God has called you to a place, you just have to silence the voices. And no matter who those voices are, you have to stay focused on the plan that you believe that God has for you and what God has called you to do. And that's what we focused on. So needless to say, I mean, we actually, we thrived here in Michigan. We had a great life. You guys had a great life. And so still do have a great life. And so I just think that sometimes it's important to silence the noise. And that's what we decided to do moving to Michigan.
Yeah. I would say that I have felt judged. The main thing that I feel judged about is how I choose to discipline Mercy, because I don't want to physically harm her. I don't want to spank her. I don't want to whip her, whatever your term is, that little pat, 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 pat. But ultimately, it's hard for me to harm her. I remember there was one situation I kind of tapped her a little bit. I don't know if I put this in there or not, but I kind of tapped her a little bit, and I remember she was just so confused. She was just like, why did you do that? Why did you hurt me? And I know that the Bible says to not spare the rod, but for me, there's a rod of correction that can happen without an actual rod. Like I'm not going out looking for an actual rod. So
like we had to go pick a switch from a tree.
Lord, I think we maybe had to do that once, but we came back with the most wimpiest thing, and y'all was like, okay, just never mind, just go to bed. Your punishment is bedtime. But she just looked so confused, and from that moment, I was just like, this is not like, I've loved her so much to this point. It's hard for me to harm her and call it love. So I've been learning, not necessarily like gentle parenting as they call it now, because I have seen that like go left, and it's like, I did not dare say what to my mama. I would not just even say what. Who do you think you are? Like, what? We got the taste slapped out our mouth sometimes.
It wasn't a 1, 2, 3.
I started with the 3, 2, 1, trying to give her a little time and a little grace. But then she said, well, can you start at 5? I'm like, no. So I'm learning different ways. I'm committed to learning different ways. I'm not trying to go the route that I think is easiest. That's not my job as a mom. I'm really trying to do what's most effective. And sometimes so I have felt judged with that, because she is so open and honest. She is so cuddly. She's so lovey with us. And sometimes it's like, okay, I can see other kids are probably a little more well-behaved than she is. But even then, after talking to the moms, they're like, no, my child has their moment. Don't you dare think that because they acting good in front of you means that they don't have their moment. So you do what you do, and you do what's best for your child, because what's working for us works for us, and your daughter will be fine. And your daughter, especially when they say she's such a great girl when we're not there.
Yes.
She's great. She listens, you know, and that's her choice at that point.
Yeah.
So, I have felt a little judged about that, though.
Yeah. So Jennifer.
Yes.
Out of all of that, what has motherhood taught you?
Ooh, patience. Motherhood has taught me so much patience. It's honestly, along with marriage, it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
It's such a reflection of how patient you are, your anger management, how well you're willing to listen to your child and really understand and learn your child. Even though my daughter's only 7, she is so smart. She has her own ideas. She's very creative. And I think for me, I'm learning patience and I'm learning balance. How to allow her to be herself, but also guide her. So I think that, it's funny. She's starting to be so vocal that now she's like, well, how about we make a deal? How about I do this and then you do that? I'm like, honey, you cannot wheel and deal your way through life. Sometimes you just have to do what you got to do because it's what you got to do. Okay. So I'm definitely learning that balance, but I would say that that's the number one thing that motherhood and faith, honestly, just to be able to allow her to, go to school and go to friends' houses and even go to her dad's. I trust her dad. But just to let her go and be and learn and be in different environments and trust that she's going to do the right thing, that God's going to protect her, definitely just up in that faith factor for sure. So what about you? What has mother and me taught you?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Taught you to call on the name of the Lord day and night.
Yes, all day. Motherhood definitely has taught me patience, and it has taught me that it's never ending. Motherhood is never ending. It comes with different stages, different generations, and still to this day, I mean, it's never ending. It's Ma, what do you think about this? And Ma, what do you think about that? And it's just never ending. But I will say that every child is different, and that's what motherhood has taught me. Even being an adult, there's no child that's the same. And so with that patience, you have to learn how to deal with each child differently. And what have worked for one person might not have worked for the next. So it's really drawing wisdom from God on how do I deal with all of my children. And so I've learned that throughout my life. Motherhood never ends. It's patience, and every child is different. There you have it.
Each episode will end with affirmations that we can all focus on around this topic. We all know affirmations help set the intention for our day and our week, so feel free to add these as a part of your daily routine. I am a great mother.
I open my mind and my heart to listen to my children.
I provide and receive a loving, no judgment zone, and I do not allow negative opinions of others to shape my self-esteem as a woman and as a mother.
God has equipped me with everything that I need. I am enough.
Hallelujah. All right. Thank you so much for listening and for watching our very first episode of Like Mother, Not Like Daughter podcast. We hope, clink, clink, clink. Oh, yes. We hope that this conversation will help you bridge the gap from one generation to the next in your family.
Yes. And we look forward to sharing our next episode. I'm not one of your little friends.
The way it's supposed to be said is, I'm not one of your little friends. Lessons on friendship.
You can listen to the recap of this episode and all episodes on all podcast platforms. But in the meantime, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time.
Hey, have a great day. That's what my dad used to say.
Yes.
Have a great day, y'all. Thank you.
I like the way